Here he is. Brian Stelter from the Reliable Sources. Now, let's remember, CNN does a show called Reliable Sources, right? And the last guy, which is really they talk about the media. And so what the last host of that was Howard Kurtz. Now, Howard Kurtz hosted Reliable Sources, but he was asked to leave the program after he filed too many stories that were unreliable.
The powers that be are holding the powers that be that hold the powers that be accountable. It's like a matrix almost.
It is like a matrix. So here's Brian, and here's how he breaks down the hiring of Corey Lewandowski. Let's watch how he pretends to really think hard about this.
His hiring was instantly controversial. In fact, I would say he's the most controversial addition to CNN in several years.
Yeah, ever since they hired Pol Pot back in the mid-'80s, I would say this is look who they're hiring. It's controversial. Controversial or an abdication of journalistic responsibility. Controversial? You just hired a guy who got arrested for battering a female reporter. The guy who was a strongman for a fascist who spews racism 24 hours a day. It's controversial. That's what he means when he says controversial, Ron. So here, he's got more to say.
For one thing, he's been openly hostile to reporters all throughout the campaign, including some of CNN's own reporters. And in March, he was accused of battery by then Breitbart reporter Michelle Fields. She said she was grabbed when she tried to ask Trump a question. Lewandowski was charged with a misdemeanor, but the state attorney then declined not to prosecute. There are also...
That's it. And by the way, that's it. He just mentions that. He doesn't go, so in looking at that would be disqualifying. He doesn't say that.
He was just a little hostile.
Yeah,
had a bad day, didn't have his coffee. It's controversial.
I like how I brought it up, I mentioned it, and then he moves. He doesn't go, and my conclusion on that is that's disqualifying. No, he just moves. He's moving on. Here we go.
About whether Lewandowski is able to say what he really thinks about Trump. After all, he's been professing fierce loyalty to Trump even after being fired. Is this because he signed one of Trump's notoriously restrictive non-disclosure agreements? Aaron Burnett asked him in his first appearance as a CNN commentator, so watch what he said.
When I came on board the Trump campaign, like everybody else, I said what I would do is keep confidential information confidential, and I signed a document to that degree, and I don't plan on ever breaking that.
Did you sign something like that said no disparaging?
Let me tell you who I am, and for those who don't know me, I'm a guy who calls balls and strikes. I'm going to tell it like it is.
So he's giving you, by the way, he's being paid for that. This is his first paid appearance on CNN. He comes on, they ask him a straight question, and he doesn't give them an answer. He acts like a politician. He doesn't give them any useful information. She has to grill him like you would grill a politician. That's what she's trying to do here. So
Is she trying to do that, Jimmy?
Well, she's trying as best she can. She's out front.
Wait, let's not forget. Let's look in the corner there. Where is he at? New Hampshire. What was he doing in New Hampshire today? He was at a Trump rally.
Oh, okay. So the point being that he did sign the non-disclosure agreement, right? And he can't say anything critical because of that agreement. They just asked him about it. He just gave a non-answer. So the thing you're hiring this guy to do, to be the commenter, give you insight into the Trump campaign, to tell us what's really going on, he can't do it because he signed a goddamn illegal document that said he can't. They want to bring him on anyway, even though he won't even offer them that.
He's going to tell us who he is. We're going to hear that.
Yeah, he's going to tell you.
This is who I am. This is who I am.
So he just gave a non-answer, which is hysterical. You just hired him to tell you stuff. He won't even tell you stuff about himself. So here is what our media reporter at CNN says about that.
So he didn't directly answer the question about non-disparagement clauses. Those basically mean that you can't go out and trash talk your old boss. Now, whether Trump's lawyers would try to enforce it is another question altogether. But you can see why there's concern about this hiring. One gossip column this weekend.
So that's it. So that he didn't go, well, obviously he's not going to tell us the truth. Obviously, he just gave us a non-answer in his first interview with his first question.
And Trump may or may not enforce it. He's not Sue happy or anything.
So he goes, yeah. and so he goes, well, whether they will enforce it, we don't know. No. That's not the question, Brian. So his name is Brian Stelter. I just looked it up. So he's there, and he just moves on. He just moves on. Oh, he didn't answer that question. He provides us zero news value. What he provides you is click value. People might tune in to see this maniac, strongman, reporter assaulter. So, in fact, USA Today, our media critic from USA Today said, even if Lewandowski wanted to say something critical of his old boss, meaning Donald Trump, and there is zero indication that he would be legally prohibited from doing so. And this guy, Brian, the media guy, just glossed over that by saying, well, we don't know if Trump's lawyers will enforce it. No. It's not if they will enforce it. It's if that guy's ever going to say anything. And he's never going to say anything. He just proved to you he's not going to say anything. And Brian switches it into, well, will Trump's lawyers enforce it? As if he's going to be saying stuff. He's presupposing that Corey Lewandowski is going to say stuff that the Trump campaign doesn't want him to say. And that is not going to happen. So this guy is just full of shit left and right through this. And he's their media getting right. CNN, he's their media critic. They're a reliable source. You see how he's doing mental gymnastics, right? To try to justify Donald Trump working for his bosses? Okay.
We just hired a guy that it's a conflict of interest 101, and
101!
Unfortunately, it's my job to tell you about it, so I just told you. Moving on.
This hiring raises ethical questions, but with CNN, there's no ethical answers. Here we go.
And said there's a, quote, revolt brewing here in the...
So he just said that there's been reports that there's been a revolt brewing at CNN in the newsroom over this hiring.
Newsroom at CNN. So I approached this story the same way I would if I worked at my former employer, the New York Times.
I decided how much of the truth they were going to let me say before I got fired. That's how people in establishment news report. Not just him. They all do that. Hey, how much of this story, of the truth of this story, can I tell before I start risking being fired?
He really does have that look in his eye like he's wondering about his cable bill. like he does have that look where he's like, oh, I hope this works out okay for me. I haven't crossed the line yet, I don't think.
But that is how it works in the establishment media. Like even at MSNBC, they fired Ed Schultz for talking a little too loudly against the TPP. You're not going to hear Rachel Maddow or Chris Hayes do extended segments about how bad the TPP is because their boss doesn't want them to. Okay? I don't know why I started to say that, but here we go.
I called and emailed more than a dozen sources all around CNN, and I found no signs of a revolt. And no.
Oh my God, you're kidding. You and the hired hack from CNN investigated CNN and they didn't find any problems? You didn't find any sign of revolt inside your company over this hiring? First of all, shame on the people who work at your company then, because there should be. They're goddamn news journalists. This guy is an anathema to news journalism. This guy is the antithesis of that. All this guy is a propaganda and a lie spewer and a race baiter and an assaulter of journalists. Okay.
He walked into the break room and he's like, you guys doing okay? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah, that's it. He didn't see any sign of revolt.
Organized protest about Lewandowski's hiring. But I did find some discomfort. There are some people that are uncomfortable with the hiring.
He found some discomfort. By Satan's cock shoved up the hole where CNN's journalistic integrity used to be, as that was a discomfort. That's nice writing, though. Here we go.
There might be some awkward moments in the makeup room. But everyone I asked also...
There might be some awkward moments in the makeup room. Did you hear what he said? No, think about that. This is how he's characterizing them hiring him. Hey, why don't you just hire Himmler? They're hiring this guy who was the front man for a fascist who's ripping the country apart by appealing to the darkest... And, by the way, got arrested for assaulting reporters. They've already been... For him to be referring to stuff, it's unbelievable.
But everyone I asked also said they understood the hiring, understood the logic of it. The reality is that Lewandowski was not hired to dish dirt about Trump, and he was not hired to be a reporter. He was hired to defend and explain and channel Trump's views. CNN has a roster of anti-Trump conservative commentators and anti-Trump pro-Clinton liberals. And as someone who looks for balance while watching TV and while hosting this show, I think it makes sense to add another pro-Trump voice.
Hey, we have a lot of anti-Trump voices out. First of all, that's not what you're supposed to be doing the news. It's not supposed to be, here's a cheerleader and here's another cheerleader. That's not what the news is. Hey, we're going to offer balance. We're going to bring on some people who are anti-Hitler, and then we're going to bring on some people who are pro-Hitler. Because at Reliable Sources, we pretend this is how things work in the news, even though you know it doesn't. We're pretending that neutrality equals objectivity, which it doesn't. They're pretending that you have to be neutral. You can objectively say this guy shouldn't be anywhere near your newsroom. That this is the kind of guy you should be exposing, not giving him a platform. What you're doing. So according to I love how it's put by the USA Today media critic. He said, since Lewandowski is legally prohibited from saying anything negative about the Trump campaign, what CNN has essentially done is placed a Trump propaganda minister at a hefty salary on its payroll. That's all they're doing. They're hiring a Trump propaganda minister, and they're giving him money, and here's free airtime. Go have at it, Hoss.
Let's not forget, it really says something about where the established media is at when someone can use the phrase pro-Clinton liberal and not just start laughing.
That's a great point. Pro-Clinton liberal. Pro-Clinton centrist conservative. There aren't any pro-liberal Clinton. They're not liberals. But there's the guy. By the way, the USA Today, let's remember, the USA Today referred to this hiring as... It encapsulates the utter bankruptcy of a practice that is awful, but nevertheless has become widely accepted part of the scene. Why CNN thinks it's a good idea to have such designated defenders for any candidate of any political stripe is completely lost on me. And not only that, the guy doesn't know anything about politics. And then you see how the guy from Reliable Sources just defends it. He just finds I think it's good to have another because what he's here to do is, what is he there to do? He's there to spew propaganda in a pro-Trump way. That's not news. So that's why half the country thinks science is a conspiracy, because this is how you report things. You pretend like all opinions are equal and there's no right and there's no wrong and there's nobody who's objectively full of shit, which there are. That's why when you bring out, so this is how they report climate change, right? They'll bring on a climate scientist and they'll bring on a senator from Tennessee and they go, oh, the senator says that there isn't climate change. The scientist says there is. Who's right? I guess we'll never know.
And the word peer review will never be used in this segment.
That's right.
We will never use that term.
And that's what they're doing here. They're going, well, we're going to have some guys who say what Trump is saying is good, and we're going to have some people on who say what Trump is saying is bad, and we let you decide. That's called spineless, integrity-less journalism. That's not even journalism. That's a circus show. That's not real anything.
It's political theater, and it's easy to produce, which is what they want. I mean, Jeff Zucker made it clear, like in his statement, I think it was like in 2013, he made it clear that's what he wants. He said, our priority is the shareholders, so we're going to try to cut corners. Not that they're necessary. I mean, they are paying him a pretty penny, but still, that's easier than real investigative journalism.
Of course that is. Of course this is all a dog and pony show. And who's the chump? The American people, because they're not getting news. They're getting propaganda thrown at them. That's all this is. CNN, the home for political operatives who manhandle female reporters who try to ask public figures questions. A reliable source. And by the way, Trump doesn't need surrogates when the media covers every goddamn thing he says anyway.
Yeah, they hire this guy. He can call them whenever he wants, and he still refers to it as the Clinton News Network.
Yeah. I like how he says, I found no sign of revolt at CNN. But you know what? I have found CNN revolting for quite a few years. I don't know about you.
I'm with you.
Ends it with this. Oh, from Fair. This is from Fair Blog, which I love Fair Blog.
Yeah,
this is where I got the idea to do this. From Fair, it says, media outlets could stand up to the Trump campaign's attempt to delegitimize and scapegoat journalists. They could do that. Or they could do the smart move. That's what other people are saying CNN did. CNN's doing the smart move. It's a smart move. That's what people are saying. Or they could do the smart move of rewarding people who thus abuse them with a lucrative spotlight. It's hard to do both. Yeah, you can't stand up to the Trump's campaign's attempts to delegitimize and scapegoat journalists and provide them with a lucrative spotlight at the same time. Kind of hard to do both. So, I don't know. I just don't know how people at CNN. Can you imagine when he said there might be some awkward moments in the makeup room. You know what he's talking about? Like there might be a woman in the makeup room when Corey Lewandowski's in there, the guy who assaults women, the campaign has been filled with misogyny.
Yeah, he already doesn't answer their questions. And we've already seen that on day one.
Maybe there'll be a Mexican in the makeup room. That'll be awkward. You know, maybe there'll be a Muslim in the makeup room. You know, awkward. You know how it would be awkward, let's say, if we had Hitler on and a Jew was in the makeup room? That kind of awkwardness.
Yeah, or maybe the makeup person is a female and she's just the only person in earshot so he can say the sexually suggestive things he likes to say.
Great job, CNN. I wonder why nobody fucking watches you and people get their news from YouTube.